timer if you'd like. Testimony today is limited to 2 minutes, and the timer will begin when you begin speaking. Please state your name for the record before testifying. You do not need to give your physical address. President Peterson, we have no one signed up in advance to testify on this item, and I see no one on Zoom. One moment. I see Glenn Sutherland. Glenn, I am promoting you to a panelist. And as Glenn is the only person, I believe he can speak in support or opposition.
That's correct.
Glenn, I see you're online. Your time will begin when you begin speaking.
Great, thank you. I'm Glenn Sutherland. I'm a land use planner consultant for West Hills Land Development, the applicant in this application, and just wanted to say that we don't have anything to add in this particular matter, and wanted to thank you for your consideration, and that was all.
Thank you.
President Peterson, we have no one else signed up to speak.
Thank you. Seeing no testimony, I will close the public hearing, and the second reading and council consideration and vote are scheduled for April 10th, 2025. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn. All right, councilors, we will now hear a staff presentation and public comment on resolution number 25-5463 for the purpose of amending 3 related I-5 Rose Corridor projects to the 2024 through 27 MTIP to add $250 million of approved funding to the projects. As we mentioned at the beginning of today's meeting, our council is appreciative of the written comments we've received on this item and for those joining us to speak today. Before we hear those remarks, we will hear a presentation from staff and invited guests about the impact of this amendment. We are joined by Jean Senecal Biggs, Resource Development Manager, Metro's Planning Department, Development and Research Department, and Megan Channel, Rose Corridor Project Director from the Oregon Department of Transportation. I will kick it over to you. We also have guests coming up. Go ahead.
We go. Is Megan Channel, who's the project director for the I-5 Rose Corridor project. We have some slides. Can you bring those up?
Could the folks in the back please pull up the slides? Thank you.
Terrific, thank you. So we're here this morning to introduce Resolution 25-5463. It's a request for approval for the I-5 Rose Corridor project formal MTIP amendment. Next slide. This amendment adds $250 million in both construction and non-construction dollars to the I-5 Rose Corridor project across 3 separate MTIP projects. The Oregon Transportation Commission approved the allocation of these funds for the project. And in your packet, you'll find the draft resolution, the MTIP worksheets, and the staff narrative that provide details on the activities funded by this work and Metro's performance assessment evaluation. Phase 1A of the project, which is the column on the right in the slide, that project would begin construction this summer in July, with Phase 1, which is shown as that middle column, that would be scheduled to begin in January of 2027. Next slide. Metro staff completed a review of the proposed amendment for compliance with federal, state, and regional requirements, which includes consistency with the Regional Transportation Plan and a performance assessment evaluation. The staff report and attachments in your packet provide more detail on this review. Next slide. So I want to highlight for you, Metro Council approved a set of values, outcomes, and actions for the I-5 Rose Corridor project in April 2020, almost 5 years ago. That has guided Metro's engagement in the project ever since. Attachment 2, the performance assessment evaluation that was prepared by Metro staff, it reviews the current status of the project in implementing each action identified in the values, outcomes, and action document and summarizes overall progress with respect to each of the 3 values. So listed here, you'll see the 3 overarching value statements that were in that document, and then the status of the 3 or 4 actions under each one towards achieving the outcomes described in the document. So the project has made good progress, to completing the actions to advance racial equity and engaging stakeholders. But the project is not on track with having congestion pricing implemented prior to the project being operational. As you'll recall, a year ago in March, Governor Kotek and the Oregon Transportation Commission ordered ODOT to stop work on the regional mobility pricing project, and the pricing project is now on hold indefinitely. So that decision poses an obstacle to achieving all of the actions associated with the pricing from that work. But I'll also note too, you'll see how the multimodal element of that value statement number 2, that is ongoing with the new pedestrian and bicycle facilities included in the rebuilt overcrossings portion of Phase 1. We also call that the lid or the freeway cap, and additional elements to be built in the future phases of the project. Next slide. We're now nearing the end of our approvals process. Today, we're introducing the item with our staff presentations along with our public testimony, and then the Metro Council is scheduled to take action next Tuesday on April 1st. Next slide. So TPAC recommended approval of the amendment to JPACT at their meeting on March 7th. JPACT also approved this amendment at their meeting on March 20th. And again, the requested action for the Metro Council is approval of Resolution 255463 to award the $250 million to the 3 projects. And I'll now hand this over to Megan to present more details about the project. So you can pull up the next slideshow. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean, and good morning, councilors. For the record, my name is Megan Channel, and I'm with the Oregon Department of Transportation Rose Quarter Project Director. On the next slide, I also want to acknowledge that I'm joined here with 2 key project partners, Winta Johannes from Albina Vision Trust and Jeff Moreland from Raymore Construction. So they'll be part of my presentation today.
Good morning.
Good morning.
On the next slide, I just want to, before we get into the specifics of the MTIP amendment in front of you today, I want to take a step back and just sort of acknowledge the project in full and continue to reiterate that ODOT and our partners, we remain committed to building this project in full. And the MTIP amendment in front of you is a phase and a step towards building that, but this is the project that we are ultimately planning to complete for the community. That includes the highway cover. You can see that kind of in the central area shown in purple. It's about a 1/4 mile in length. It'll be available for multi-story development on top and roadway reconnections, as well as new roadways, multimodal connections with the Hancock crossing that you can see is number 2 in yellow. The project also includes a number of multimodal local street improvements, as Jean mentioned, on the local street network, as well as a separated bicycle and pedestrian bridge. And then we have the I-5 mainline improvements that include 1 auxiliary lane in each direction between Interstate 84 to the south and Interstate 405 to the north, coupled with the relocation of the southbound off-ramp from Broadway in Vancouver to Williams and Wheeler, kind of consolidating the I-5 ramps in that southern area south of the highway cover with the intention of opening the highway cover to be a more people-friendly place. So on the next slide, I just want to acknowledge this really summarizes the 2 phases, the first phases of Rose Quarter delivery. I'll go into the specifics of what Phase 1A is and what Phase 1 is, but just want to acknowledge that with this MTIP amendment, that would bring total funding for this project to $863 million, and that includes the decades of work to date from planning, environmental, and design, and then being able to implement and start construction this summer and build the first part of the highway cover. So on the next slide, I will dive into Phase 1A. So Phase 1A is the phase that will start this summer in 2025 construction. It includes putting shovel-ready components of the project into construction and getting our community to work. That includes stormwater improvements on the north end of the project area that are also needed for Portland Harbor agreements required by Department of Environmental Quality, not only for Rose Quarter, but for ODOT's broader region. And then we have the bridge preservation components to the south. So that includes upgrading seismic resiliency of that I-5 structure, deck replacements, and safety railing improvements. And these elements really put into place how we maximize opportunities for disadvantaged business enterprises. We'll be putting into place what we call a mini prime, or having a DBE take on the prime role for portions of this work under the mentorship and technical guidance of the joint venture. So it's helping to build capacity not only for future phases of Rose Quarter, but for future work in our region. On the next slide, and phase one would start construction in 2027. We already have programmed the Reconnecting Community grant dollars that build first portion of the highway cover. And as of last week, we did get notice that because we have a signed grant agreement and because we have a portion of those funds already obligated, that we can continue to proceed in the obligation of the remaining phases of that grant. So that's big news to be able to keep moving forward. And I will say, hours after we got that notice, we put our obligation request in. But phase one, it again builds on the Reconnecting Community grant work to build more of the highway cover, and then it also starts to implement some initial phases of the mainline improvements, building the southbound auxiliary lane and a portion of the northbound auxiliary lane. So with the completion of phase one, we will have about 30% of the highway cover built. It's about 550 feet of the 1,500 feet in total, that quarter mile. So it's also addressing one of the most complicated components of the highway cover around Broadway and Weidler. So a good investment there. And then, as I said, the mainline improvements coupling there and putting this together in one phase is critically important in that it maximizes efficiency of construction and during construction thus limits the amount of impact that we're having to the traveling public, both to drivers on I-5, but also all the local users along Broadway, Weidler, and Williams. So that concludes my summary of the phases. I have two more slides. The next one, this is just an overarching view of our project timeline. So as I noted, beginning construction, presuming this MTIP is approved, we would start construction this summer. And with the funding that we have to date would carry through 2030. We're continuing to work with our partners, with our state legislature on seeking to fill the funding gap for the remainder of the project. And then on the next slide, I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge all of the community partnerships that have gotten us to this point. I want to specifically acknowledge our historic Albina Advisory Board members have been instrumental in helping us frame this project and this design to get to the point where we are today. Our Community Oversight Advisory Committee members helping us develop ODOT's first diversity and subcontracting plan on a mega project, and our key partnership with City of Portland and Albina Vision Trust, who we're joined with today. Specifically thank them for their advocacy and leadership and helping us have the funding that we will be able to proceed with today. So with that, Jeff, I'm gonna turn it over to you to share a little bit more about our workforce program, and then Winta will go to you.
Good morning, counselors. Good to be with you this morning. First of all, I just want to start by acknowledging that it's been a long 5-year process for us to finally get to a project that everybody agrees to and everybody is pushing forward to build. And I want you to know how exciting that is. For somebody like myself, it's even been longer than that because I've been 20 years working with ODOT, or even fighting with ODOT to get them to go to an alternative delivery methodology so that communities of color can actually benefit. And so I'm very grateful that we're finally at this point. And further, I want to acknowledge the great news about the feds actually allowing us to continue to obligate funds. So I feel very excited about this project moving forward. So I wanted to start with that. This project has always been, for me, about meaningful opportunities in construction for meaningful work, for meaningful pay that can help reestablish and build communities that have been marginalized and locked out. So this project is very significant for that. Can we put a slide up, please? Next slide. That's okay. We'll keep going.
No, we're up, we're good.
Okay, we'll keep going.
It's up on ours.
The next
There it is.
slide, please. Okay. So our ability to be able to increase these opportunities is going to be critical, right? And I would want to say that the community has worked at large through all the stakeholders, the COAC, the HAB, the contracting community, NAMAC, Albina Vision Trust, to make sure that this project was not mishandled. That this mega project is going to inject billions of dollars in construction opportunities was not mishandled, and that we will actually see meaningful benefit considering this project displaced that. And so we have to put together a very robust diversity plan, which is essentially our blueprint on how we're going to build equity and inclusion throughout every aspect of this project. And if you haven't had that, I suggest that you get that from ODOT. We have set up a mentorship protege. She talked about the mini primes to be able to help build capacity in the contracting community of color, the communities of color's contracting community, to build that capacity through the mini prime opportunities. And we have a contractor that I am part of the joint venture team. Raymore Construction is part of that joint venture team with Hamilton and Sunt, to make sure that these contractors are successful and they're building the corporate governance and corporate infrastructure that they can continue in the future. And again, building a skilled workforce. The skills gain, again, this meaningful work that we're talking about helps gain skills in a population that can be carried over in the future. What attracted me to construction was the fact that the opportunities in this field, all you needed is a good attitude. And you can come in and you can become an apprentice and go from an apprentice to being a journeyman to a foreman to a superintendent to a project manager. And most of the top companies in Oregon are construction companies, top privately held companies. And you can, who all came from people from the trades, by the way. Those companies were started from people in the trades. And we know that entrepreneurship is the number one wealth building capacity that we have in this country. So we see this as a golden opportunity to build a legacy for our community. And I thank you all for your consideration in moving this forward.
Thank you.
I'll turn it over to Winter.
Good morning, council. So as Jeff said, getting to consensus on the design of this project could really be described as nothing short than capturing lightning in a bottle. And everyone says you can't catch lightning twice, and yet we did with the $450 million in historic funding that was awarded to this project. And so while it's Jeff and I that sit before you today, I want to just reemphasize the broad and deep engagement that has led us to this point today. I challenge you to identify any other transportation project that has so meaningfully engaged Portland's Black community. Outside of the formal stakeholder groups that you've heard listed, there have been hundreds of dinners, of forums, of fierce debates, of storytelling series, of meaningful conversations. There is not a Black-led or Black-serving organization I can think of that hasn't engaged in this project. And through all of that, we've come to remarkable consensus. Alongside that engagement, our neighbors in the district, the Trailblazers, have also had serious misgivings about the project at various points. And yet, through meaningful engagement and problem solving with them, they too stand today as project champions. I can't overstate how important that is. And so I come here today to ask you not to move the goalpost. Don't ask us to capture lightning in a bottle a third time. We can't provide a crystal ball or really any certainty about what's to come. That's where your leadership comes in. We're asking for your support in continuing to move forward towards the delivery of a complete project. And I'll just speak for the Albina Vision Trust. Our faith is not only in the project, but it's in your leadership specifically. There has been no steadier public partner for the work of the Albina Vision than Metro. I've said this in front of you many times publicly and privately. And so, in a moment of incredible uncertainty, matched with incredible consensus and the opportunity to move forward, we hope that you will choose to move forward. We're asking for your partnership in strategy to navigate the political and financial uncertainties that lie ahead. We're asking for your partnership in providing certainty that the best thing we can do when we don't know what's going to happen is to move forward. And we're asking for you to take seriously your oversight role to make sure that the project that's long been promised to this community is the one that will be delivered. And as we ask that of you, I commit that Albina Vision Trust will continue to stand as a project partner towards the full and complete delivery of the project that has long been promised and that our community has worked really hard to define and move forward, not just over the last 5, 10, 20 years, but really over the last 50 since the original construction of the highway. Thank you.
Thank you both, and thank you to our staff, and Megan, thank you for being here. I'm just going to say anything in life is achievable with that kind of attitude, a good attitude. It really rings true in so many different things, but the construction careers and our construction career pathway program that I know that we've worked with all of you on has become so important to Metro in terms of being able to find those jobs for people. So thank you for continuing your commitment on behalf of your community and our entire region. So thank you. And thank you to AVT for, again, being a solid partner, moving our region forward because you are leading the way. Councilors, do you have any questions for either Metro staff, Megan, or our guests? Councilor Rosenthal.
Yeah, just one question. Which is dominant, the Governor Kotek's putting a hold on the congestion pricing or the more recent federal restrictions on any kind of tolling on federal highways?
You're asking about the status of that, or?
Yeah.
So the Governor Kotek, the direction to continue to pause on tolling remains in effect. So absent any further state direction, we remain paused on that.
But I'm just asking about the status of the federal directive regarding that. I've heard that the federal FHA has put a hold on any kind of tolling or any kind of fee charging on federal highways.
I am not familiar, Counselor, with the federal guidelines and recent direction on that. I can only speak to the state direction.
Thank you.
Yep.
My understanding is the exact opposite, that they want to see the states pursuing congestion pricing and user fees in order to be eligible for any project going forward. So it's a stated criteria from this administration.
Okay, then I've heard differently. But
There you go. Councilor Huang.
Great, thank you, Madam President, and thank you all for coming in. Very powerful stuff. I do have a question, actually two questions for the staff. It's great news that, the feds made that announcement last week. Can you explain a little bit more about what that means for this project? I understood, a Reconnecting Communities grant was under a federal review. Is that federal review now concluded and we're good to go? Or are there multiple phases that will still, be reviewed?
Counselor Wong, thank you for the question. So the Reconnecting Communities Grant Program review, my understanding is still in place, but while that review continues, in acknowledgement of the grant agreement being signed between ODOT and USDOT, which occurred in October of last year, and the design phase funding, so that's design phase and utility funding being obligated also in November of last year. In recognition of those two things, they're allowing our project to continue to go forward with the obligation request. So the remaining funds to be obligated are right-of-way and construction, and so we're working with the Federal Highway Administration to program those. The next step in that process is that the division office in Oregon of Federal Highway Administration and headquarters will process that obligation request.
So there's less uncertainty, but still uncertainty.
I'd say there's substantially less uncertainty, but there still remains some risk.
And My next question, actually, I think for you is, the MTIP amendment here is both for the 1A and the 1. And can you explain why we couldn't decouple the 1A from the 1? It seems like, the 1A has got all its funding, they're ready to go, construction's, good to go. And, I think to me, like MTIP amendments usually come forward when there's like a solid funding strategy that we cannot count on in place. So what is keeping us from, if construction doesn't start in the rest of phase 1 until 2027, why are these linked now?
Yeah, it's also a great question, Councilor Wong. So they're linked together for a couple key reasons. One, so phase 1A, or even taking a step back, like the need for all of these project elements isn't going away. And so we're coupling these together with funding that we have secured from our Oregon Transportation Commission, so that $250 million in House Bill 2017 funds that's been redirected back to Rose Quarter. We have that money, and it's being split to fund Phase 1A, which would start this summer, which is work that is needed not only for Rose Quarter, but for the broader region. And then coupled with that, there's a portion of that $250 million that's going to Phase 1 that expands upon the work that we can deliver with the Reconnecting Community grant of the highway cover. And why it's important to do both of those now is we're setting the marker for the scope for Phase 1, which is needed for us to proceed in designing that scope, setting up our specifications with our contractors so that they know what to build, and that's what the construction money is then for. So it's important that that happen now to kind of set us on that pathway to deliver those components together so that we're maximizing, again, the efficiencies of construction and limiting impact to the traveling public while we do that.
And I saw a figure in the slideshow. There was still a $650 million to $1.05 billion shortfall. Is that for the total project or is that for Phase 1?
That is for the total project. So Phase 1A and Phase 1 with this MTIP amendment approval would be fully funded.
So you're saying that Phase 1 is fully funded?
Phase 1 is fully funded.
Understood.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Awesome. Councilor Nolan.
Thanks, Madam President. Question for Megan from ODOT. What is the minimum of the $250 million that will be contracted to COBID or DBE firms? And what do you estimate to be the likely amount of that $250 million?
I may actually need to call a friend here who's next to me, Jeff Moreland. Councilor Nolan, I don't have the specific DBE numbers for these phases directly in front of me, and it's also possible that Jeff and I may need to confer on that and follow up, but that if Jeff does not have that readily available, we can definitely follow up with those numbers.
Yes, but I can answer the question, is that
Mr.
it was,
Moreland.
okay, good to see you. It was very important that right out the chute that we have impact in communities of color. So we have the mini prime set up now on most of these major scopes. And we're going to deliver, I think that we're close to 22%. I'm gonna say not quote that, but at the very minimum of that in terms of being delivered through COBID firms on this project. And due to our ability to do some of the mentorship kind of protege that we work closely with ODOT, we anticipate exceeding that. But we still have a little bit more work to do to get that all under to be sure on that. But it will be substantial, significant, and we are all working very diligent to not only get those opportunities, but to expand the capacity for the next phase, which is why Megan says it's important that we don't decouple them, because we can't do that level of planning to increase that without having that certainty to move forward in the contracting community. Hopefully that makes sense.
So minimum 22%.
That's where I think we are right now in that 22% range. We'll pin that down and give it official soon.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thanks.
Counselor Lewis and then Counselor Gonzalez.
Sure, this is a question for ODOT. Obviously, when you're dealing with amounts of money like this, nobody shows up with a suitcase full of cash or a check. It's all digital monies. But are we working off of a reimbursement-based model, or are we gonna see cash in the bank account before we hit go on putting the shovel in the ground?
Yeah, so with the House Bill 2017 dollars, that's a mix of cash that is in the bank now that we're frankly using for our work, and cash that would be bonded in the future. And so that is the 250 million. For the 450 million from Reconnecting Communities, the grant agreement indicates that as being reimbursement. So we do the work here as part of the project and then seek that reimbursement with Federal Highway Administration. The grant agreement and then the obligation of those dollars codifies our use of those funds.
And how regularly do we do the reimbursement? Is that monthly, weekly, quarterly?
I believe for the Reconnecting Community Grant Agreement, it's quarterly.
Great, thank you.
Counselor Gonzalez?
Thanks, President Peterson, and thank you to everyone for coming today. I know that we've called on folks to present to the council and JPACT a few times over the last few months. Your time is very appreciated. At our JPAC meeting, there was an amendment from Councilor Simpson around the linking, and so I wanted to just highlight that. I shared that with the Metro Council as well, and shared that language. And so, not sure if there's anything that Megan that you would like to talk about in with relations to that. But my question is about the as we're looking at the funding stack for this project and how we move forward. The current legislative funding session is pretty critical to that. And so could you talk about the work that you've done, the OTC has done, and the project partners have done to help to make sure to deliver the rest of the funding to the project as well, so that we can, fully build the what's stated here. So anything that you could share with us would be wonderful.
Great, thank you, Councilor Gonzalez. So I'll speak to the first piece regarding the amendment and just say a thank you to Councilor Simpson and Metro Council leadership and JPACT for that amendment. Continues to hold us accountable with these large amounts of dollars and indicating that if the Reconnecting Community grant funding is not made available to us, and there is a major change in scope that will return through the MTIP process. And to your additional point, and I'm so sorry. As I was saying that, I totally blanked on what your second point was. How embarrassing!
It was how the conversations in Salem.
Conversations in Salem, of course.
And obviously, there's a lot of legislators and senators and state reps that make that up, but. What have the conversations and leadership been of the project partners of ODOT and legislative leadership saying in terms of the future of this project, state's commitment, things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say those conversations have been kind of coming to the top in our legislative conversations. What we're hearing back from the state legislature is really a priority to finish unfinished business. And they see the Rose Quarter at the top of that list of unfinished business from House Bill 2017. So we collectively as ODOT have been in front of Ways and Means, Joint Committee on Transportation, presenting a number of times on Rose Quarter. And with that, I think there's a growing level of understanding that, again, the need for this project is not going away. The longer that we wait to deliver it, the more expensive it becomes. And so we're looking forward to the continued conversations there. So I can speak to the ODOT piece.
Thanks.
Yeah, we've spent a fair amount of time in Salem as well. We have an upcoming lobby day with our partners at the Blazers, where this is our top priority. We're also advancing a governance bill that directs what will happen on top of the highway covers once they're built. And so, again, this is an area where we would ask for additional Metro support and partnership to be in Salem with us, reiterating how important it is that this project move forward.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah.
One more. Well, thank you for sharing that, and happy to talk more. As you were talking about the delays and things like that. It came to mind, Greg Johnson on another big project, the I-5 Bridge, he has like every day of delay from the timeline that we have has like X costs that it adds to the future of the project, right? So do we have any kind of inclination as to how that might impact this project?
Yeah, I can speak to
Thank
a calculation kind of for every year of delay, we're talking order of magnitude $75 million.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That's exactly the line of conversation I wanted to have with you all here today, because I think it's the most important thing to discuss today, is that while this project started quickly and may have tried to take some shortcuts, I just want to say thank you for coming back and going a little slower, which I know was frustrating to some of the participants, but it is highly documented that in mega projects, going slow to go fast is the most important thing to get ownership around what it is we're building, so that it's not, we're meeting expectations and we know what those expectations are, we know what roles and responsibilities are, and we understand what measures of success are. And I think we have that before us. Now it's time to go quick. Because if we don't move quickly, we are increasing the risk to this community and increasing the risk to this region and this state. So I just want to encourage us all to move as quickly as we can together. And I just wanted to ask something similar to Councilor Gonzalez in terms of the timeline, because I saw that there is a fairly large range for the rest of the cap of, 600 million to 1 billion? Is that based on when the risk of time?
Yeah, so President Peterson, that estimate includes the sort of expected year of expenditure for those future phases. So it accounts for the inflationary impacts.
Escalation.
So the quicker we can get going on the next phase beyond one is better.
Yes.
So that we can reduce the costs. And my question on similar vein to you, Winta, is what is the cost to the AVT vision if this has a delay in terms of what you're able to achieve on behalf of your vision?
Yeah, well, just, this summer we'll be welcoming the first families to Albina One, and there's a beautiful courtyard that will look out to either a highway cover that will functionally tunnel the freeway or not. And so, the cost to us really is going to be measured in terms of quality of life for residents as we continue building out the rest of the district vision to build the 1,000 units of housing we've promised on the Portland Public School site, and then the other separate parcels that we're continuing to acquire and build.
It's a cost to future generations, literally.
That's right, and there's an important part of this that's about district momentum overall as well. The existence of the freeway has been the key development challenge for a long time. And so, presenting and being able to provide evidence that the project with the cap is moving forward continues to attract the other kinds of partnerships that are necessary for the vision to move forward. And so it's the impact is measured in more than sort of dollars and cents. It also is, a snapshot into whether or not our region can stay coordinated to deliver big projects across time.
Thank you. And, Mr. Moreland, I have been patient with this planning process to your chagrin. And now I just want you to know I'm no longer patient. We need to move now that we have consensus. My question to you is, revolves around what I think is an invisible problem in these projects that I'd like you to make visible, is that the number of people who own small businesses out there who are now capitalizing up to be able to participate in a project, and the risk that they are taking on right now that any delay will cause them financial problems in the future. Can you talk about how these small businesses have been gearing up for this and the risk to their own financial being?
That is a absolutely great question, and I'll answer it by just saying the impact it's had on my company. This delay has removed $20 million in revenue out of my company and has put my company at more risk because of this delays. And I'm one of the larger diverse contractors. So you can only imagine what that delay has done to the smaller subcontractors who's put a lot of time and energy invested in estimating this thing repeatedly and not taking on other opportunities, the opportunity costs they lost in, they're gonna miss in revenue and profitability to their company. So that strain has been severe, and we finally on the same page. We need to move forward. We're all in agreement. We have to move forward. And the cost not to move forward, I think, far outweighs anything else that we could be doing.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question, by the way.
No, I appreciate you. All right, seeing no other hands raised, I again thank you for coming in. As Councilor Gonzalez has noted, you've been before a lot of audiences, and you will continue to be before a lot of audiences, but I appreciate your time and energy that has been spent to get us this far. Did you have anything other to add, Jean? Oh, you put your microphone down, so I thought you were gonna make a closing comment, but, all right. With that, we'll move into public testimony, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So much.
We will now turn to the public comment on this resolution in advance of council consideration on Tuesday, April 1st at 10:30 a.m. Tuesday's vote will not include a staff presentation or public comment period, but written testimony submitted by 4 p.m. on Monday, March 31st, and will be included in council materials. I will now open public comment on resolution number 25-5463. Ann, will you please describe to the audience the procedures for public comment?
Absolutely. If you are testifying in person on resolution number 25-5463, please sign up by filling out one of the blue cards in the back of the room and bringing it up to me unless you've already signed up. I have those names. And if you are testifying on Zoom or by phone, please sign up using the raise hand function, which is located in the reactions or the more tab on Zoom, or by dialing *9. When it's your turn to testify, I'll call your name or your phone number, and if you're on Zoom, you will click accept to be promoted to a panelist. Your window will close briefly, and then you can turn on your camera when you speak if you'd like. Testimony today is limited to 2 minutes, and the timer will begin when you begin speaking. Please state your name for the record before testifying, but you do not need to state your address. And I will begin with folks who signed up in advance. First, we have Chris Smith.
President Peterson, members of council, Chris Smith representing the No More Freeways campaign. With due respect to Mr. Moreland, not everyone agrees. The No More Freeways campaign was formed in 2017 to oppose this freeway widening. And while we have deep respect for Albina Vision's goal of reconnecting their community, we believe doing so on the foundation of a freeway expansion is a fatal mistake. I would like to talk about promises made and promises deferred. Jean referenced the fact that House Bill 2017, which authorized this project, promised us congestion pricing. That promise has been deferred. That would have mitigated the impacts of additional traffic in this corridor. We had an extensive cover design process. President Peterson helped facilitate that. That's appreciated. That promised us buildable caps across the whole central area of the project. It promised us a bike ped bridge, and other multimodal improvements. It promised relocating a freeway exit to take traffic away from the cover area. What we have in phase one is a freeway project and a token amount of covers. So all those other promises, again, are deferred. That is inappropriate. I don't know why this wasn't phased north to south instead of south to north, because that would have built the cover near Albina 1 first. You have the power to change that by withdrawing your consent and insist on a more balanced phasing for this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Next up, we have Sarah Risser.
Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Sarah Risser, and I'm here with Families for Safe Streets. All members have lost loved ones or have been seriously injured in road traffic. We advocate for road safety with the premise that it's a fundamental human right to travel safely regardless of mode. This helps clarify guiding principles. The first is that people are at the heart of any transportation system and should always be prioritized over vehicles. The second, safety is the most important attribute of any public system and should take priority over the speed and throughput of vehicles. Given this, it's easy to conclude that this exorbitantly expensive highway expansion will cause more harm than good. Of more importance than highway lanes is adequately maintained roads and bridges and a guarantee that innocent civilians aren't violently killed as they travel. We need a balanced, healthy transportation system. Choosing to drive should be a choice, not the only choice. Everyone deserves less expensive, polluting, and deadly options. Spending money we don't have to tether the region to the most inefficient and destructive mode of travel drives us away from a healthy, safe, and sustainable metro region. Even if by some miracle this highway expansion relieved congestion, it will lock us into an unhealthy car-centric transportation system, which takes a disproportionate financial toll on low-income families. It'll ensure more wear and tear on our roads, more greenhouse gases and air toxins, more tire particulates in our ecosystem, more fatalities. To support a project so rife with negative externalities is as reckless and irresponsible as responding to a signal message while driving 15 miles over the speed limit in a residential neighborhood. It will inflict more harm than good. It's immoral to prioritize a highway expansion over addressing our road fatality crisis. In no other realm of public life do we see this level of violence. We desperately need to invest in safe roads. Please reject the amendment bundle for Rose Quarter. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Next, we have Alan Rudnick.
Morning.
For the record, my name is Alan Rudwick, and I'm with the Elliott Neighborhood Association. Council President, members of the council, I, like many, some in this room, some out, am opposed to this project, and I recommend that you vote no on the MPIP amendment. You're all elected to help make our metro region a prosperous place and to guard the public purse. Those are noble goals, but is this project truly advancing those goals? The Rose Quarter project was conceived of as a highway project. Simply, it was easier to build a lid than to widen each of the individual bridges across the freeway. Since 2012, many public and private negotiations have created a beautiful vision to bridge the highway with many buildings, cultural venues, open space, and instead of just open space and road noise. However, Phase 1 as currently proposed will just be building even wider cap than the original planners envisioned possible. This will be built at great expense. The larger cap will hold a couple small buildings, but the real jewel of the freeway lid proposal is being deferred to Phase 2, which neighbors and ODOT watchers expect will never be built. There's no transportation need for it. While ODOT is proposing to squeeze 5 lanes where there are now 4 south of the lid to save money, they're proposing to build an excessively wide cap at the most expensive place underneath the new lid that they're going to build. Thousands of citizens have spoken out loudly, repeatedly against this project many times over the years, and I'm sure all of those comments are mostly summarized into short bites for you all. We need decision makers that will speak up now and say that this is an unjust way to accomplish our community's goals. Elliott is 1 mile away. Voting no on Phase 1 will send a powerful message that this project is not ready for prime time and that ODOT should cut the width and cost if they want to get to construction. Voting yes is sending us another signal that every other political entity has sent that there are no real checks and balances to ODOT on this project. Think of all of the other projects you could fund for this amount of money. Thank you.
Thank you. Mackenzie Springer and Eva Frazier. Okay, you're both here. Great. Mackenzie, go ahead first. Thanks.
Good morning, President Peterson and members of council. My name is Mackenzie Springer, and I'm the Transportation Advocacy Manager with Neighbors for Clean Air, a statewide organization that works to ensure that every Oregonian has clean and healthy air to breathe. Thank you for your willingness to discuss the MTIP amendment that would advance the proposed Rose Quarter Freeway expansion and for the opportunity to comment. Particularly in light of the uncertainty of the federal government's promised funding, combined with the significant public health harms of expanding a freeway, we urge you to reject this amendment and to stop supporting ODOT and continuing this detrimental project. If you do choose to adopt the amendment, we urge you to exert your right to revoke the amendment in the months and years ahead if the government revokes funding for the Reconnecting Communities program. The transportation sector is the leading source of air pollution in Portland, particularly in the form of emissions of nitrogen oxides, particulate matter, and volatile organic compounds. These emissions are linked to higher incidences of asthma, lung cancer, respiratory illness, heart disease, and stroke. Children and elderly residents are particularly at risk. This Rose Quarter Freeway expansion will only worsen these health impacts, particularly in the already most heavily impacted neighborhoods adjacent to the freeway. Furthermore, this project's financial uncertainty has the potential to harm other vital transportation projects in the region. It has already seen massive cost overruns, and as you heard, the project as a whole continues to face a significant funding gap. While there are important elements of this project that we support, such as the community-endorsed highway caps and the Clackamas Avenue Bike Pedestrian Bridge, there is no guarantee they will ever be fully realized, as they are predominantly included in the second phase of the project, where funding is increasingly uncertain. Meanwhile, funding the federal freeway expansion itself will only exacerbate air pollution without delivering the meaningful community benefits. We also urge Metro Council to demand an environmental impact statement that thoroughly explores viable alternatives to this freeway expansion, alternatives that prioritize clean air, community health, and sustainable transportation solutions. We must not continue to channel funds into a project that harms public health, especially when the region has so many other urgent transportation needs. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hello, Council President, councilors. My name is Eva Frazier. I am the chair of Bike Loud PDX. I'm here to add one more concerned voice to the chorus. Our city has climate goals and active transportation goals that we are absolutely failing at. Is it really the time to continue building and expanding freeways, doubling down on the mistakes of the past, and harming Portlanders who have been wronged by a car-centric network of roadways? How can we move forward when the community benefits of a complete reconnected cap, the only thing keeping the idea of this project limping along, are pushed off into the distance, into phase 2, which from everything I'm absorbing here is sort of a question mark still. I'm here to ask you to reconsider this mess and say no to funding this expansion. If reducing traffic congestion is the reason this project needs to move forward, I'd say why add lanes when you could reduce traffic? Why would we spend money to fix a problem that we can solve by making money? We're suffering from cognitive bias, trying to solve our problem with addition instead of subtraction. If we found our political will, we could implement congestion pricing. It's hard to see why taxpayers in the metro region should be financing a project when we haven't held fast with a congestion pricing plan. Just look to New York City and their success with a $9 surcharge to drive into Midtown Manhattan. The New York MTA has raised $50 million a month and is reducing car traffic. We need congestion pricing before we need more freeway. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. We also, I don't have any blue cards for anyone else that's here in person, but if so, please bring one up. We do have some folks on Zoom. I don't see any hands raised yet, so if you would like to testify and you're on Zoom, please do raise your hand and I'll go through you one at a time. But I do know that we had Joe Courtwright who had signed up in advance, and I see on Zoom. Joe?
Mr. Posey, if you want to testify, yeah, go ahead.
Thanks very much.
Just come on forward. Thank you, James. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody.
Can you identify yourself for the record since we don't have a blue card for you?
Thank you. Thank you, Council. My name is James Posey. I didn't intend to testify this morning, but when one of the testifiers mentioned Elliott Neighborhood Association, I just wanted to say I live in that neighborhood for about 45 years now, and it concerns me. It concerns me that we're still quibbling over the condition in that neighborhood. It's deteriorated. You all know the effects of gentrification. You know the effects of how this community has been harmed by highways going forward. And this project, the I-5 project, has given many of us hope that we can maybe heal some of the pain that has occurred over the years. And so I've watched, when I moved into the neighborhood 45 years ago, there were a significant number of African Americans that lived in that community. And right now, it's been gentrified and virtually no Black people live in Elliott. But the effects and impact have been devastated. People were moved out, had to move out into the numbers, et cetera, et cetera. So you all know the story. This project holds a possibility of us recovering from some of the pain that's been experienced as a result of highways. And I think it's disingenuous for folk to talk about no more highways while they build and had economic prosperity over the years that build up their community while we've suffered. And now that we have an opportunity to reverse some of that, they come in with a plan to talk about no more highways. People that look like me have a real problem with just being able to survive, let alone breathe. So I think you all have shown some leadership in reversing some of that by what you've done on the Convention Center. You all have been partners to reverse that. And I hope you will continue on that path by approving this amendment going forward. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Posey.
Thank you. I'll open up one more time for anyone who may wish to testify in person or on Zoom. Mr. Courtwright, I am going to try one more time to promote you to panelist, and we'll have a one-way conversation if you'd like to join. I'll give him one moment. And there we go. Thanks very much. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. For the record, Joe Courtwright, I am Director of City Observatory. And I just want to point out that the Rose Quarter project, while the covers get a lot of coverage, this is really a 10-lane wide freeway. It has a right-of-way between 160 and 240 feet. This is certainly going to increase the volume of traffic through this region. And I also want to point out that, as your staff report mentioned, you have utterly failed, or ODOT has utterly failed, to meet the council's requirement expressed in the values, outcomes, and actions that pricing be programmed as part of this project. And now pricing has no part in the project. Not only that, but ODOT consciously omitted pricing from its environmental assessment. The RTP, your document that you adopted a year and a half ago, assumes that pricing will be in place. So you literally have a strategy that is, or a project that is completely at odds with the specific conditions that you adopted and your regional transportation plan. ODOT's own technical analysis shows that pricing will be more effective at reducing traffic and improving traffic flow than widening. This project flies in the face of climate policy. The traffic projections that ODOT and your staff generated for this project are wildly at odds with what's in the regional transportation plan. They assume 20% more traffic in 2045 than your regional transportation plan says we are going to have. Finally, I want to point out that this project imposes huge fiscal risks. ODOT and Ms. Channel are moving ahead and doing anything they can to get this project started because they know once it's started that you will be on the hook for whatever it ends up costing. That is the record for all of these projects. The Abernathy Bridge has more than tripled since it was started, and you will have no control over that. It will eat the region's capital for the decade to become. So this will become Portland Region's ask for the foreseeable future and will devastate our ability to meet our other desperate transportation priorities. You should definitely vote no on this project.
Thanks very much. Council President Peterson, I do not see any other hands raised.
And nor do I see anyone running forward to testify. So I will close the testimony on this resolution. Councilors, before we conclude this portion, which we are going to have, again, written comments still open and council consideration on Tuesday for a vote, while we have Project Manager Megan Channel still, do we have any questions after what we heard today? Anybody want to? I just want to open that up while we have access. Megan, I do, so if you could come forward, that would be great. Could you just clarify, just for the record, how many actual lanes there will be under this freeway cap?
Yes. So for the record, the highway cover will be spanning over I-5, and I-5 includes 2 through lanes today. It will still include 2 through lanes in the future. The project is building 1 new auxiliary lane in each direction between Interstate 84 and 405 to the northbound, and 1 new auxiliary lane in the southbound direction between 405 and 84.
Thank you. And when you look to the future of how many more lanes will be added to I-5 at this constrained place, which is the most constrained place in the entirety of the region, and our policy is 3 through lanes in each direction, what do you see for the future of I-5 and the ability to expand?
So this segment of I-5, ODOT does not have any plans in place to build beyond the 1 new auxiliary lane in each direction. And as you look at the system, you know, there's 2 through lanes coming into the project area and 2 through lanes coming out of the project area. And so for that reason, ODOT does not have any plans at this point in time to be building beyond the auxiliary lanes.
Thank you. And one more last question. Of the total of the entirety of the project when completed, and I know this is hard to estimate, put you on the spot, about what percentage is actually on the auxiliary lane and the emergency shoulder addition? What part of the cost does that represent?
Yeah, President Peterson, great question. And to your point about the complexity in answering that, I think it's important to note that the highway cover and the auxiliary lanes and shoulders, the I-5 mainline improvements, are so intertwined. You need both to support one another, and you build them together. I will say, to build the highway cover, you need space to build the highway cover. And so even if you were doing no mainline improvements, you would need to widen portions of the area underneath the cover to be able to construct that while still maintaining traffic on Interstate 5. So just want to note that. To your point about the specific cost, I apologize, I don't have the cost in front of me, but I think a good order of magnitude to say would be about 30% of the mainline costs going towards the full project cost.
So the vast majority of the money is going to take care of the transportation and land use issues at the surface level, not at the highway level.
It's hard to answer that because they're so intertwined. Right. But you know, the project in full is addressing our state's top bottleneck. As of this year, January, we are now the 27th worst freight bottleneck in the nation. And you know, you look at Broadway and Weidler, they're high crash corridors. We're helping to address this not only at a state, the interstate level, but that local multimodal safety level as
Along with the connectivity of the street network at the surface level.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Rosenthal.
Yes, I have one question actually that's about the bridges and it's about seismic resiliency. My understanding is 5 of the bridges will be retrofitted or stabilized according to. Are there bridges that will remain? I mean, one of the problems we have is that we don't have many bridges that are seismically resilient. The new interstate bridge would be one and the Burnside would be one, but will there still be bridges that will need to be reworked for seismic resiliency in this specific area?
Yeah, thank you for that, Councilor Rosenthal. So the project will be upgrading the existing sort of I-5 bridge structures on the I-5 main line to increase their seismic resiliency. And then as we look to the highway cover, that will be built to current seismic code, thus being seismically resilient. So rebuilding Broadway and Weidler and Williams and Vancouver and Flint that currently cross over I-5, those will all be rebuilt as a seismically resilient highway cover structure.
So hopefully nothing will collapse onto the freeway during a quake, if we're good.
Thank you. Counselor Wong.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up on the comment around congestion pricing. And if it wasn't included in the current kind of model, if a future state action like enabled or created a congestion pricing system, could that then be incorporated later into kind of like how this would operate, as well as the funding mechanism?
Yeah, so I'll say that, the way that ODOT was looking at addressing the needs in our region was really through the urban mobility strategy, recognizing that it's not just one project or one tool that's going to solve our congestion and safety needs going forward. And so as prior to the governor's direction to pause on congestion pricing, there was a regional mobility pricing program that was exploring that, and then there was also a tolling project on I-205. In spring of last year, those were paused. I will note that in the context of that mobility strategy, Rose Quarter was a separate and independent project from that tolling, recognizing that working together, everything would be complementing sort of our achievements to reaching our regional goals. But Rose Quarter itself and the project does not have a tolling component. So as we look forward, if there is future direction from the governor, from our legislature to proceed, that would be taken at a level outside of the Rose Quarter project, but could include the Rose Quarter area.
And then a follow-up for our staff, if our RTP included assumptions around congestion pricing, does that require us to revisit elements of the RTP or anything like that?
The answer is yes.
That's a good question. I might actually want to lean on Ted Liebold here. Yeah.
Welcome, Ted. If you could just introduce yourself for the record.
So could you repeat the
Could
question,
you
Councilor Wong?
introduce yourself?
What's that?
Could you introduce yourself, and then
Oh, yes,
I'll
sorry.
have Counselor Wong repeat the question.
Yes, Metro Council President Peterson and members of Metro Council. I'm Ted Liebold, Transportation Policy Director here at Metro. So just the question about re-looking at congestion pricing, are you talking
Yeah.
specifically about the RTP itself or with regards
So,
to
we
this
have
project?
the RTP.
Yeah.
And we all made certain assumptions for this project and for our region that assumed elements of congestion pricing. And I'm not sure, but I thought they were baked into some of our assumptions. And if, in this project that no longer contains, that type of pricing at the moment, does that require us to then revisit elements of the RTP?
The RTP itself does assume in the 20-ish year timeframe of the RTP that congestion pricing would be implemented in that timeframe. I don't believe that requires us to withhold inclusion of projects in the RTP into the MTIP in the shorter timeframe that the MTIP is a 4-year document, as opposed to the long-range timeframe of the Regional Transportation Plan itself. So it doesn't prevent us from adding projects to the MTIP. I think when we do the update to the next RTP process, we will need to take a long look and evaluate whether congestion pricing is realistic in that next timeframe of that long-range plan and whether that's a valid forecast going forward. But it does not stop you from acting on amending the TIP in the short term with regards to implementation of the congestion pricing being in place.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, councilors? Councilor Lewis.
Sure, thank you. I will not be asking about tolling. You can be sure of that. So I guess in terms of a question regarding some of the feedback we've heard today, in terms of phasing, we heard recommendation that north to south would be a better phase. And I think in terms of if I were queen for a day, I might recommend that too, but thank the gods we don't have queens in this country. So can you give us the technical reason why we're moving into these phases south to north?
Yep. So, and you're speaking, Counselor Lewis, specifically to phase one around the highway cover, correct?
1 and 1A, yes.
Yes, okay. So the highway cover, we prioritized focusing on Broadway and Weidler, so the southern end first, because that is the technical reason, because it is the most complex. Think about, you've got streetcar running on Broadway and Weidler and high traffic volumes. On Williams running through there as well. You have some of the highest bicycle volumes in our city as well. So given those factors and the fact that those three bridges actually aren't independent bridges, they are all built kind of as puzzle pieces on top of one another. When you touch one, you're really touching all three. And so needing to address those together was important. And as we think about the impact of inflation, addressing that complexity first was important. Another key point to this is that in our partnership with City of Portland, Albina Vision Trust, they also had a complimentary and successful Reconnecting Community grant that was focused on the Broadway-Weidler corridor. And so in order to prioritize and be complimentary of that work, that is why we focused on Broadway.
And you leveraged the Broadway funds, didn't you?
Say that again?
The Broadway corridor funds, you could leverage those.
I'll defer to the city on the status of those funds, but I do know that they have a signed grant agreement in place.
Okay. I think that helps. I do think complexity versus importance is an interesting thing to contemplate, but I can understand from a technical perspective that choice. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Nolan.
Thanks, Madam President. While you're here, Megan, you've mentioned inflation a couple of times, and you estimated that a delay of a year in this project moving forward would cost $75 million. Can you give me certainty or assurance that if these amendments are approved in the next week, as is the timing, that the project costs won't inflate by $75 million a year from now?
Counselor Nolan, I cannot give certainty around the impact of inflation, but I can provide some additional context. So, as we look at national trends, going back from 2017 to 2022, in that time period, at a national scale, Federal Highway Administration was showing that there was a 72% increase in construction cost. 50% of that was 2020 to 2022. So I say that in the context of that is unprecedented increase that I don't think any of us in this room or in the industry could have anticipated. I will say that our team, it looks at the trends and takes a certain percentage of sort of inflationary impact into our project cost. We're making the best guesses that we can and the most informed decisions possible, but I can't guarantee that there won't be additional inflationary impacts going forward.
Thank you. Counselor Gonzalez?
Yeah, I mean, this conversation's so good. I mean, why not continue leaning in on it? That was a great question from Counselor Nolan, and I think one of the first things that popped into my mind as well is the uncertainty around tariffs as well, which there's like steel and asphalt, I mean, all the things, right? And so the question is not so much like around how are we planning for that, because in reality, I don't think anyone can plan for that, and the madness coming from DC. But I guess my question is the raw materials and the construction costs and things like that go into a project. Does that impact ODOT projects the same as it impacts PBOT projects, the same way it impacts TriMet projects? Because whatever you're building, you're using materials that you need to insource, right? So could you talk to us about that? And I mean, basically, is ODOT the only project delivery organization that is experiencing this?
Yeah, I appreciate the question, Councilor Gonzalez, and the answer is no, ODOT is not alone in the impacts of inflation and escalation, and particularly the price of these materials. You know, if you look at the price of steel, that has exponentially gone up in recent years, and we will likely have a lot of that on the Rose Quarter project, given that we're building a highway cover. So I'll use that as just kind of one example, but we have a really, really strong team with our contracting partner, Hamilton Sunt Joint Venture, in association with Raymore Construction, whom you heard from this morning. And they've got such a tight pulse on market trends that we are able to take advantage of that resource in the design phase, and using our construction management general contractor delivery approach for this. So we're getting the best information we can to inform how we go forward. But to your point, no, we are not alone. Everyone building, transportation or vertical infrastructure is running into the same impact.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Anybody else? I appreciate you all coming back up before we close this out, just because we won't have access. Councilor Rosenthal, did you have one last question?
Yeah, I have a last question. A lot has been said about congestion pricing and about the hold on congestion pricing. Has ODOT done any estimate of whether, if congestion pricing was instituted on this particular portion of the freeway, what impact it would have on the congestion? I mean, as you know, this congestion is one of the biggest bottlenecks on the I-5 network, and some of it is the interstate bridge, some of it is other portions of the system. Has that estimate been done? Was that done before the hold was placed?
Yeah, Councilor Rosenthal, thank you for that question. So as part of the environmental assessment that we conducted as part of the project, which looked at all of the environmental impacts, and for which we received federal approval for last spring, that document does include an attachment appendix that looks at a high level, sort of what the impact of pricing in Rose Quarter would be. So what the finding of that is that Rose Quarter as a standalone has a beneficial impact in reducing congestion, improving safety. The congestion pricing program also, as an independent project, has a benefit in reducing congestion and improving safety. Coupled together, that's where you get substantial benefit beyond those two independent benefits. But I do want to be very clear that the I-5 Rose Quarter Improvement Project is an independent project, also demonstrates that substantial increase in safety and a reduction in congestion.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
I gotta ask a follow-up to that.
Yeah,
I'm
Councilor
sorry, you
Lewis.
opened the door. In that analysis, what impacts of diversion did you study?
So that analysis was done at a high level, and the diversion analysis was really being done as part of the tolling program, so as part of regional mobility pricing. That was not something or level of detail that we got into as part of the Rose Quarter evaluation.
I just want to acknowledge there's good diversion, there's bad diversion. And good diversion is people timing their trips differently, taking different kinds of trips on transit. And there's bad diversion. And I'm looking right out this window at 3 lanes each direction in the exact same travel corridor. And when we talk about improving street safety, I worry about those streets. So thank you.
Yeah, and Councilor Lewis, if I may, I will also add, one of the things that we found in our traffic analysis is that diversion is happening right now as a result of this being a bottleneck. So there are vehicles that are diverting to the local street system to avoid Interstate 5. And so with the implementation of the new auxiliary lanes, it's kind of putting traffic where it belongs in terms of the travel. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, now I think we're done. Thanks. And with that, I'll just remind everybody in the audience, the council consideration of resolution number 25-5463 will be Tuesday, April 1st at 10:30 a.m. With that, we will move on to Chief Operating Officer Communication. Marisa.
Good afternoon, President Peterson and councilors. Just wanted to share that Glean's 14th Annual Artist in Residence exhibition will be opening on Thursday, April 17th. The opening reception will take place on the 17th from 5 to 8 p.m., and the exhibition will run until May 25th. For those unfamiliar with the program, Glean is a partnership between Recology, Oregon Recovery, Inc., Metro, and Reclaim It. It's a juried art program that taps into the creativity of artists to inspire people to think about their consumption habits, the waste they generate, and the resources that they throw away. Works made by the selected artists in residence are created strictly with materials recovered from Portland's Metro Central Transfer Station. You can find more information about the program and featured works at gleanportland.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselors, any communication? Counselor Lewis.
Sure, thank you so much. Counselors, I just want to lift up that Monday is International Trans Day of Visibility, and our ERG had a wonderful coffee moment on Tuesday morning, and there's interactive activity in the hallway. So I encourage everybody to look into that and the work of our employees at supporting each other. And I think it's important in this particular moment in time in this country. Yes, this is an international day, but we need to tell those in our family and friends networks that we love them. And here at the workplace, maybe we don't use the word love, but we see them and we appreciate them and we're here to support them.
Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. I was extremely excited to see an announcement about our staff coming together to talk about Star Trek and its implications to how we do our work. And I want to join in on that conversation so badly.
There's no money in Star Trek.
There's no money in Star Trek. Good point. Just tribbles.
Yeah.
Counselors, any other counselor communication? All right, with that, everybody live long and prosper. I will see you back here next week, Tuesday, April 1st at 10:30 a.m.